What happens when cinema becomes hollow? When art is replaced by algorithms and soul by spectacle? According to Francis Ford Coppola, cinema isn't just entertainment. It's poetry in motion, a director's confession, a dream carefully unraveled on celluloid. So, when a film ignores this truth, it doesn't just fail artistically, it offends the very spirit of storytelling. In this documentary countdown, we reveal 15 films Coppola would likely consider cinematic failures. First, Jaws, The Revenge, 1987. Sequels can deepen a story, or kill it. Jaws, The Revenge, the fourth entry in Spielberg's shark saga, sinks so far into absurdity that even its tagline, "This time it's personal," feels like a joke. To Coppola, who treats legacy and myth with sacred care, this film is a tragic erosion of storytelling. Rather than honoring the terror of the original, it becomes a soap opera with fins. The plot centers on Ellen Brody, widow of the original film's sheriff, who believes a great white shark is deliberately targeting her family. Yes, a shark seeking revenge. The premise alone insults audience intelligence. Coppola, who wove generational tragedy through The Godfather Part 2, would likely cringe at how this sequel mangles continuity, character, and credibility. The direction is uninspired. The shark animatronics look worse than in the original, and the dialogue reads like filler. There's no suspense, no depth, just recycled music and shallow performances. Even Michael Caine, who later joked he only did the movie for a new house, can't save it. Coppola believes in elevating source material. Here, the source is drowned in mediocrity and absurdity. Ultimately, Jaws. The Revenge doesn't just fail as a horror thriller, it mocks its own legacy. It transforms primal fear into predictable schlock. Coppola, who sees cinema as mythic storytelling, would likely mourn this as a classic-turned-cash grab, a sequel that should have never seen the light of day, let alone the deep end. 2. Speed 2. Cruise Control, 1997. The original Speed was taut, thrilling, and lean, a high-octane action film with heart. Speed 2, however, is everything its predecessor avoided. Bloated, slow, and utterly tone-deaf. Set on a luxury cruise liner, the sequel trades adrenaline for absurdity. Sandra Bullock returns, but Keanu Reeves wisely declined. For Coppola, who thrives on tension and pacing, Apocalypse Now being the gold standard, Speed 2 would feel like a betrayal of cinematic momentum. Jason Patric replaces Reeves, but lacks the charisma or emotional anchor to carry the film. The villain, played by Willem Dafoe, injects leeches into his body for health reasons and hacks into the ship's controls with cartoonish ease. What could have been a clever high-seas thriller devolves into a sea of clichés. Coppola, who structures his films with operatic precision, would find this film's pacing painful. An action movie where the central set piece is a boat, slowly crashing into a dock. Worse, the dialogue is laughably stilted. Characters wander through lifeless subplots, romantic tension, vacation hijinks, technical mumbo-jumbo, none of which builds real stakes. There's no sense of urgency, no character depth. Coppola has said that great storytelling must evolve naturally, but this sequel feels like a script written backwards from its marketing slogan. Speed 2 doesn't just fail as a thriller, it insults its own genre. For Coppola, who sees each film as a handcrafted experience, Speed 2 is the equivalent of reheated leftovers served on a silver plate. A sequel in name only, it turned velocity into lethargy, and art into afterthought. 3. Wild Wild West, 1999. What do you get when you mix a steampunk spider, a cross-dressing villain, mechanical prosthetics, and Will Smith as a cowboy? You get Wild Wild West, a movie so bizarrely overproduced that even its star later apologized for it. For Coppola, who believes innovation must serve story, not smother it, this film is the textbook case of style-crushing substance. Based on a 1960s TV series, the film had potential for fun retro flair. Instead, it explodes into a chaotic blend of genres with no narrative compass. Smith and Kevin Kline, both solid actors, are buried under an avalanche of bad puns and CGI gimmickry. Coppola, who values atmosphere and tone, the conversation, rumblefish, would likely find this tonal whiplash intolerable. The film's biggest crime, however, is its lack of cohesion. It tries to be a western, a sci-fi, a buddy cop comedy, and a satire, all at once, and fails at everyone. Kenneth Branagh's villain, a Confederate amputee in a steampunk wheelchair, could have offered a darkly comedic foil. Instead, he becomes a caricature, offensive, incoherent, and surrounded by mechanical nonsense. Coppola, who has directed with historical sensitivity, Tucker, The Godfather Part 2, would likely find the film's treatment of American legacy flippant and disrespectful. At $170 million, Wild Wild West had one of the largest budgets of its time. But what good is money if there's no soul? Coppola, who once mortgaged his vineyard to finance one from the heart, believes cinema must be worth the risk. This film took no risks. It played every scene for the cheapest laugh or loudest bang. It's not just a misfire. It's a reminder that without vision, even gold-plated bullets miss the mark. 4. Kazam, 1996. Kazam is a film where a genie, played by NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal, emerges from a boombox to help a troubled kid. That might work as a cartoon, but as a live-action film, it's one of the most baffling entries in 90s family cinema. For Coppola, who reveres character arcs and thematic layering, Kazam is the cinematic equivalent of sugar overload. Loud, flashy, and emotionally void. The movie opens with Max, a boy dealing with abandonment and bullying, who summons a rapping genie to fix his life. But instead of exploring grief, reconciliation, or childhood escapism with depth, the film opts for goofy rhymes, slapstick, and awkward wish fulfillment. Coppola believes children's films should respect their audience's intelligence, like The Red Balloon or The Black Stallion. Kazam does the opposite. Shaq, while charismatic on the court, is no actor, and the script gives him nothing to work with. His lines are corny, his jokes fall flat, and his magical abilities seem to change with every scene. The visual effects are cheap, the pacing uneven, and the emotional beats ring hollow. Coppola, who treats every scene as a chapter in the soul of the story, would find this film maddeningly hollow. But the deeper failure is how Kazam trivializes trauma. The child's emotional pain is used as a setup for sight gags and rap montages. There's no catharsis, just noise. And to Coppola, that's unforgivable. Because when you ask an audience to feel and then offer nothing in return, you've not only failed as a filmmaker, you've broken the sacred trust of storytelling. 5. Giggly, 2003. Once hyped as a power couple showcase for Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, Giggly became one of Hollywood's most mocked failures. It's not just the awkward romance or the stilted script. It's the complete absence of direction or emotional truth. Coppola, who believes in the poetic relationship between characters and themes, would likely see Giggly as the cinematic equivalent of a flat note played on a broken piano. The story follows a low-level thug tasked with kidnapping a prosecutor's mentally challenged brother, only to fall for the woman sent to oversee him. That alone is tonally dangerous territory, and Giggly handles it with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. The dialogue tries for edgy, but lands somewhere between awkward and offensive. Scenes meander with no sense of urgency or payoff. And the romantic chemistry? Non-existent. Lopez and Affleck, both capable actors in the right role, are trapped in a script that doesn't understand them. Coppola, a director who coaxed nuance out of Marlon Brando and Al Pacino, would likely see Geely as a failure in both casting and character development. There's no transformation, no conflict, just shallow exchanges in an emotional vacuum. Worse, the film attempts emotional resonance in scenes that feel manipulative rather than moving. When a movie exploits sensitive issues for cheap effect, it crosses a line, especially for filmmakers like Coppola, who treat human complexity with reverence. Gigli isn't just a romantic misfire. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when publicity drives production, and heart gets left behind. 6. Catwoman, 2004. What should have been a powerful reimagining of a complex anti-hero turned into a latex-drenched disaster. Catwoman, starring Halle Berry, is a perfect example of what Coppola might call a corporate misfire. A film made by committee, not by passion. The story barely connects to the iconic DC character. Instead, it follows Patience Phillips, a meek graphic designer resurrected by an Egyptian cat spirit. The result? A plot stitched together with CGI and clichés, missing the psychological depth Coppola demands of his characters. The cinematography is aggressively stylized, with jerky editing and excessive CGI that makes action scenes unintelligible. Berry's performance is buried beneath corny one-liners and awkward cat puns. Coppola, a master of visual storytelling, would likely recoil at how technology replaces substance here. There's no thematic depth, just noise and neon. Even the villain, played by Sharon Stone, is reduced to a makeup-obsessed stereotype, lacking nuance or credible menace. More damning is the film's disregard for female empowerment. Rather than offering a layered portrayal of a woman reclaiming her strength, Catwoman objectifies its lead and relies on style over substance. It fails to engage with the dualities that make anti-heroes so compelling. Something Coppola captured brilliantly in The Godfather with Michael Corleone. Here, there's no moral ambiguity, no real struggle, only poses and punches. Catwoman didn't just flop, it betrayed its own potential. Coppola often stresses that every frame should reflect a filmmaker's soul. But this film feels empty, soulless, a merchandising ploy cloaked in leather. It's not just a bad film, it's what happens when studios forget why cinema matters in the first place. 7. Battlefield Earth, 2000. If cinema is meant to express truth, then Battlefield Earth is its opposite, a cacophony of delusion and hubris. Based on the novel by L. Ron Hubbard and starring John Travolta, this film is a notorious sci-fi failure. Coppola, who abhors artificial storytelling and glorified ego trips, would likely consider it a textbook case of what happens when ideology trumps art. Everything about the film, plot, pacing, visuals, is buried beneath self-importance and incoherence. Set in the year 3000, Earth has been enslaved by the alien Cyclos, but the narrative is so muddled and exaggerated it veers into parody. The direction is plagued with bizarre camera angles, constant Dutch tilts, and color grading that feels like an Instagram filter gone rogue. Coppola's philosophy champions clarity and emotional grounding, even in fantasy. Battlefield Earth lacks both, instead delivering a muddled dystopia with no internal logic or relatable stakes. Travolta's performance, drowned in prosthetics and pomp, is often cited as one of the worst in science fiction. The dialogue is laughable, the characters one-dimensional, and the pacing is torturous. Coppola believes in giving characters agency and internal transformation. Here, humans are cardboard cutouts, in a world that feels both over-designed and underdeveloped. There's no rhythm, no heart, no grace. Perhaps the greatest offense is that Battlefield Earth had resources and wasted them. With a reported $73 million budget, the film could have aimed for Blade Runner-level world-building. Instead, it became a cautionary tale. Coppola would likely see this not only as a betrayal of craft, but as evidence of what happens when cinema becomes a vanity project, rather than a communal dream. 8. The Emoji Movie, 2017. Can a film made entirely from emojis have heart? That was the challenge the Emoji Movie faced, and spectacularly failed. For Coppola, who champions originality and soul in storytelling, this movie represents the ultimate corporate Frankenstein, a product made by marketers, not artists. It's not just bad, it's cinematic surrender. Set inside a smartphone, the film follows Jean, a meh emoji who wants to express more than one emotion. While the idea could have led to a creative exploration of identity, what we get is a soulless sprint through app logos, product placements, and pop songs. It's like watching a YouTube ad disguised as a hero's journey. The film's emotional core, being true to yourself, is treated like a throwaway slogan. The visuals are bland, the characters are gimmicks, and the jokes fall flat. Even children, the supposed target audience, found little to connect with. Coppola often speaks about making films that express deep, personal truths. The Emoji Movie is the antithesis: shallow, safe, and designed to sell rather than speak. In Coppola's universe, cinema must challenge the viewer. It must say something. The Emoji Movie says nothing of value. It is a parody of creativity, a reflection of how easily art can be replaced by algorithms. And that, for a filmmaker devoted to artistic freedom, is the gravest offense of all. 9. Rollerball 2002. A remake of the gritty 1975 dystopian cult classic. Rollerball 2002 trades biting political commentary for testosterone and techno. The original warned against corporate control and the spectacle of violence. The remake? It's about a guy in leather skates punching people. For Coppola, who believes genre should elevate narrative, not dumb it down, this film is a profound disappointment. Directed by John McTiernan, Die Hard, the movie had every chance to succeed. Instead, it became a Frankenstein's monster of MTV-style editing, metal soundtracks, and incoherent action scenes. Characters are flattened into tropes: the stoic hero, the corrupt mogul, the damsel with a backstory that goes nowhere. Coppola, a pioneer in world-building, would see this as a desecration of dystopia. The most bewildering aspect is the editing. The action sequences are cut so fast and chaotically, they become unwatchable. Entire plot threads vanish mid-film. There's a 10-minute sequence filmed in green night vision that feels like a camera test gone rogue. Coppola once said, "The essence of cinema is editing." Rollerball takes that essence and grinds it into glitter dust. Thematically, it's a betrayal. The original Rollerball had something to say. The 2002 version says, "Look at this cool stunt." For Coppola, who believes cinema should provoke, not pacify, this is not just bad filmmaking, it's dangerous filmmaking, because it teaches audiences to expect less. And that, he'd argue, is the greatest tragedy of all. 10. Norbit, 2007. Eddie Murphy's brilliance is undeniable, but Norbit is a reminder that even the most talented can falter hard. Directed by Brian Robbins and co-written by Murphy himself, the film is a cringe fest of offensive stereotypes, mean-spirited humor, and fat-phobic gags. For Coppola, who demands dignity and complexity even from his most flawed characters, Norbit would be cinematic poison. Murphy plays three characters: Norbit, a timid orphan; Mr. Wong, a caricatured Asian elder; and Rasputia, Norbit's domineering wife. Rasputia is portrayed with such grotesque exaggeration that the character becomes a punchline in every scene. The joke isn't clever, it's cruel. Coppola believes cinema should reflect our shared humanity. Norbit reflects our worst prejudices. What makes the film especially troubling is its tonal confusion. It wants to be a love story, a farce, and a redemption arc all at once. But none of it lands. The romance is unconvincing, the humor alienates, and the message is muddled. Even the visual style feels garish: cartoonish makeup, overlit sets, and slapstick choreography that feels decades out of place. Coppola has long advocated for films that elevate and challenge audiences. Norbit panders. It's not just a misstep in taste, it's a rejection of artistry for shock value. And in a world where so many stories remain untold, wasting a platform on this kind of mockery is, in Coppola's likely view, nothing short of cinematic heresy. 11th, Gods of Egypt, 2016. Imagine a story about ancient Egyptian deities, told with white actors, CGI overload, and zero cultural respect. Gods of Egypt was pitched as an epic fantasy, but landed as an empty, tone-deaf spectacle. Coppola, who reveres mythology and historical texture, Bram Stoker's Dracula, The Godfather, would likely see this as one of the worst kinds of cinematic sins, one that disrespects both its subject and its audience. Directed by Alex Proyas, the film cast Scottish actor Gerard Butler and Danish actor Nikolai Coster-Waldau as Egyptian gods. Critics and fans alike slammed the film for its whitewashing, lack of cultural authenticity, and its insultingly cartoonish portrayal of ancient lore. For Coppola, who believes cinema must honor the specificity of its setting and characters, this kind of casting wouldn't just be bad, it would be immoral. The film's visuals are relentlessly artificial. Cities of gold, flying sphinxes, and collapsing temples rendered entirely in CGI, with no grounding in physical sets or cultural nuance. Instead of awe, the audience feels overwhelmed and detached. Coppola's devotion to real environments, even building entire cities in the Philippines for Apocalypse Now, makes Gods of Egypt look like a hollow screensaver by comparison. But beyond the bad effects and casting, Gods of Egypt commits a deeper crime. It reduces profound mythologies to popcorn spectacle. The gods here don't symbolize power, fate, or the cosmos. They throw punches and fire lasers. For a filmmaker like Coppola, who sees history as story and myth as meaning, this film wouldn't just be a disappointment. It would be a desecration. 12th Geostorm, 2017. There's disaster cinema, and then there's Geostorm, a film so bloated with CGI, clichés, and exposition that it becomes a parody of the genre it mimics. For Coppola, who uses environmental chaos to reflect internal character storms, Apocalypse Now's jungle madness, for instance, Geostorm represents everything shallow about modern spectacle-driven cinema. It's disaster without drama, apocalypse without meaning. The story follows a satellite system meant to control Earth's climate, which malfunctions and causes worldwide catastrophes. Enter Gerard Butler, again, playing a rogue engineer who must save the planet. Instead of tension, we get a formulaic barrage of digital tsunamis, frosty explosions, and presidential conspiracies. Coppola, who demands that drama emerge from the characters themselves, would be appalled at how Geostorm reduces global destruction to a backdrop for techno-macho banter. Worse, the film tries to inject emotional stakes by inserting a daughter subplot and sibling rivalry, neither of which has any depth or weight. Characters are cardboard cutouts. Their decisions don't arise from internal growth, but from plot necessity. Coppola believes the soul of a film lies in its people. In Geostorm, people are just exposition machines in front of green screens. The greatest offense? Its total lack of introspection. A film about climate collapse could say something urgent and real. Instead, Geostorm says, "Isn't this explosion cool?" To Coppola, who uses cinema to dissect war, faith, family, and fate, this is more than artistic laziness. It's cultural negligence. 13. Son of the Mask, 2005. Following in the footsteps of a comedy classic is no easy task, but Son of the Mask didn't just stumble, it crash-landed. Intended as a sequel to Jim Carrey's 1994 hit The Mask, this film swapped charm for chaos and heart for horror. Jamie Kennedy stars as a cartoonist who becomes the new victim of Loki's magical mask. For Coppola, who treasures thematic consistency and emotional continuity, this sequel would be an unholy abomination. From the first frame, the film feels wrong. The jokes are forced. The effects are garish. And the energy, meant to be zany, feels manic and uncomfortable. There's no character arc, just a series of slapstick nightmares stitched together with shrill sound effects and juvenile humor. Coppola, who builds humor into tragedy and nuance into madness, would see Son of the Mask as everything art shouldn't be: loud, empty, and soulless. What makes the film truly disturbing is its use of CGI on babies and dogs, turning once lovable sidekicks into uncanny monstrosities. The infant, cursed with the powers of the mask, shapeshifts, flies, and battles a CGI dog in scenes that feel like rejected YouTube animations. Coppola's films, even at their most surreal, ground fantasy in human emotion. Son of the Mask is pure chaos with no emotional tether. Even the mythology is butchered. The Norse god Loki, played by Alan Cumming, is reduced to a campy side villain with no gravitas. The magic of the mask, once a symbol of primal desire, is now just a cheap visual trick. To Coppola, who treats myth with reverence, this wouldn't be just a bad sequel, it would be cinematic blasphemy. 14. Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, 2011. There's a way to make a tortured, flaming-skulled biker into a compelling character. And then there's Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance. The sequel to the already flawed original, this film took everything potentially powerful about Johnny Blaze's mythos and drowned it in incoherent editing, shaky cam, and screeching sound design. To Coppola, who reveres mythological archetypes and emotional torment, this was a missed opportunity of mythic proportions. Directed by Neveldine Taylor, the film attempts to be edgy and raw, but ends up messy and mind-numbing. Nicolas Cage returns, but his performance is hijacked by erratic direction and cringeworthy dialogue. Instead of deepening the Ghost Rider lore, the film throws in child prophecies, monks with guns, and a flaming urination gag that seems designed solely to obliterate viewer dignity. What truly makes Spirit of Vengeance unbearable is its lack of tone. It shifts from horror to slapstick to melodrama in seconds, leaving the audience emotionally unmoored. Coppola, who once used tonal layering to orchestrate masterpieces like The Godfather, would likely view this as a film made by filmmakers who don't trust the intelligence of their viewers. Ghost Rider could have been a tragic figure, a modern Faustian tale. But in this film, he's just an effect. A skull, some chains, a fire trail. No soul. And to Coppola, whose films are powered by the internal flame of their characters, Ghost Rider. Spirit of Vengeance wouldn't just be a bad movie, it would be a hollow one. And hollow, to him, is the worst sin of all. 15. Dragon Ball Evolution, 2009. Adapting a beloved property requires reverence, risk, and understanding. Dragon Ball Evolution had none. Based loosely, and we mean very loosely, on Akira Toriyama's legendary manga and anime, this film took a rich universe of warriors, philosophy, and mythology and reduced it to a bland high school superhero flick. For Coppola, who believes cinema should capture the essence of its source, this film would be nothing short of sacrilege. Goku, the spiritual heart of Dragon Ball, is here portrayed as a whiny American teenager with girl troubles and locker room anxieties. Gone are the Eastern philosophies, the martial discipline, the cosmic stakes. Instead, we get dated CGI, flat performances, and a story that seems embarrassed by its own source material. Coppola, who lovingly adapted The Outsiders and Youth Without Youth, would see this as an insult to adaptation itself. The direction is uninspired, the pacing is jarring, and the villain, Piccolo, once a symbol of vengeance and redemption, is reduced to a green latex caricature. There's no honor, no spiritual weight, no identity. The film strips the soul from every character and turns a generation's mythos into a paint-by-numbers action script. Most heartbreaking of all is the betrayal felt by fans worldwide. Dragon Ball isn't just a show, it's a philosophy, a cultural phenomenon. Coppola, who believes that cinema must honor the cultural heart it comes from, would likely view Dragon Ball Evolution as one of the most soulless adaptations in film history. Not just bad, but historically wrong.